Evan was a struggling journalist in Seattle, desperate for a big story to revive his dwindling career. His last few exposés had fizzled, and his editor was losing faith. So when a contact slipped him a tip about a mysterious deep website, Evan's instincts kicked in. The site, called The Silent Bidder, was rumored to be a place where people could hire hitmen anonymously through a dark auction system. Targets were nominated, bids were placed, and whoever paid the most got their wish. Evan thought it was the scoop of a lifetime until he became the subject of his own story. Accessing the site wasn't easy. Evan spent days piecing together cryptic forum posts, downloading specialized software, and following encrypted links. Finally, he found it, a pitch-black homepage with the words, "Blood for Bitcoin, name your price." The interface was deceptively simple. Users nominated targets, attaching photos and personal information. Others placed bids, their usernames and offers scrolling in real time. Each listing was chillingly detailed, with profiles ranging from petty thieves to powerful politicians. But Evan wasn't here to participate, he was here to expose the operation. He took screenshots, noted usernames, and even recorded himself browsing the site. It was the kind of story that could put his name back in lights. Evan couldn't resist probing deeper. He created an anonymous account and joined a bidding war, posing as a potential client. His plan was to win an auction and then expose the process. The target in question was a man named David Russo, a suspected mob informant. The bids climbed rapidly, reaching $100,000 in Bitcoin. Evan placed a placeholder bid, fully intending to retract it before the auction closed. But something went wrong. His screen glitched, and when it refreshed, he saw a horrifying notification. "Congratulations, you have won the auction." Evan's blood ran cold. He hadn't even transferred Bitcoin, but the site acted as if the transaction were complete. A chat window popped up immediately. "Moderator, target confirmed. Execution in 72 hours. Do not interfere." Evan panicked. He tried to explain that it was a mistake, but the chat went silent. He refreshed the page, only to find a new listing, his own. Evan Michaels, age 34, snooping journalist, reserve price $150,000. The bidding for Evan's life began instantly, climbing at an alarming rate. He tried to log out, but the site wouldn't let him. Every attempt to close the browser triggered a pop-up. Leaving the game is not an option. In a frenzy, Evan shut down his laptop, but the damage was done. Whoever ran the site now knew who he was and what he had tried to do. That night, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Enjoy your last 72 hours. The silent bidder always collects." Evan didn't sleep that night. By morning, he realized he couldn't fight this alone. He went to the police, armed with screenshots and recordings. But the officers were skeptical. A detective named Laura Klein listened patiently before offering a blunt response. "Even if this is real, you're dealing with people far beyond our reach. The deep web is a black hole. Good luck finding anyone in it." Desperate, Evan turned to his tech-savvy friend Marcus, who had helped him navigate the dark web in the first place. "Man, you poked the bear," Marcus said, shaking his head. "This isn't some hacker group. These are killers. They won't stop." As Marcus worked to trace the site's origins, Evan holed up in a cheap motel, trying to stay off the grid. But his paranoia was justified. On the second night, someone broke into his room. Evan woke to the sound of his door creaking open. In the darkness, he saw a figure silhouetted against the streetlights. Thinking fast, he grabbed the heavy lamp by his bedside and swung it wildly. The intruder dodged and lunged, pinning Evan to the bed. A knife glinted in the dim light. Before the assailant could strike, Marcus burst in, wielding a fire extinguisher he'd grabbed from the hallway. He smashed it against the intruder's head, sending him crashing to the floor. The two fled, leaving the unconscious attacker behind. Marcus revealed that he'd found something troubling in his research. The silent bidder doesn't just target people, they play both sides. They hire hitmen to kill you, but they also leak your location to vigilantes and bounty hunters. You're being hunted by everyone now. Evan felt the walls closing in. Every move he made seemed to trigger a new wave of threats. His email was flooded with chilling messages. You can't hide. We see you. You're next. Evan and Marcus devised a desperate plan. Using Marcus's hacking skills, they managed to trace the site's server to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Armed with a gun stolen from Marcus's brother, they ventured into the building. Inside, they found rows of computers running autonomously. The screens displayed live feeds of hitmen stalking their targets, with Evan's name prominently featured. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the warehouse. You shouldn't have come here. A man stepped out of the shadows, his face obscured by a mask. You've made this personal, he said, raising a gun. Evan and Marcus dove for cover as shots rang out. Marcus managed to disable the man with a well-placed swing of a metal pipe. But before they could celebrate, the monitors flickered, displaying a new message. Nice try, Evan, but this isn't over. They destroyed the computers and fled the warehouse, but Evan knew the fight wasn't over. He abandoned his career, changed his identity, and went into hiding. Months later, while scrolling through a news site, he saw a headline that chilled him to the bone. Seattle man found dead after deep web investigation. The article described Marcus's brutal murder, his body discovered in a park near their old neighborhood. Evan shut his laptop, his hands trembling. He knew the silent bidder wasn't done. And he knew it was only a matter of time before they came for him again. It all started with Jason, a curious man from the US who was obsessed with the dark corners of the internet. The kind of man who believed he could find anything, no matter how unsettling, if he just knew where to look. One fateful night, while browsing the deep web, he stumbled upon a hitman for hire service. His heart raced. The dark website promised an untraceable service, one that could make anyone disappear for the right price. Jason had no intention of hiring anyone for a hit. He was just intrigued by the dangerous world these sites operated in. After navigating a maze of security layers, encrypted chats, and suspicious pages, he decided to take it a step further. He didn't know who he was dealing with, but something about the atmosphere of the site made him feel like he was in the presence of something much darker than he could ever have imagined. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He was testing his limits. Something told him this would be just another bizarre story he could tell his friends. But then a strange thing happened. Out of nowhere, a message appeared in his inbox. It was encrypted, but Jason, curious as ever, cracked it open. The message was simple. I see you. His blood ran cold. Jason shook it off as a prank or maybe just a coincidence. But then it happened again. Another message appeared on his screen. You shouldn't have come here. His heart started to pound. He tried to shut his laptop down, but it froze. The cursor blinked ominously, as if waiting for him to make a move. That's when he noticed something far more sinister. His webcam light flickered on. Panicking, Jason grabbed a towel and covered the camera, but before he could take any other action, a notification popped up. You've been marked. Suddenly his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Hesitant, he answered. Jason. The voice on the other end was calm, eerily calm. You've been foolish. I have access to your device now. Every key you press, every click you make, I'm watching. Jason froze. He tried to shut everything down again, but it was no use. He was trapped in a digital maze, one that he couldn't escape. The next few days were a nightmare. Jason's devices started to malfunction. His laptop screen would flicker with static, showing images of him sleeping, walking to work, or just sitting idly, footage that could only have come from his own camera. But the real horror began when he noticed that his phone was no longer his. Every app he opened, from social media to his bank account, was tampered with. It was as though someone else had taken over his entire life. But the worst was yet to come. One evening, Jason received a package on his doorstep. Inside, there was only one thing, a single black envelope. He opened it, heart pounding in his chest. The note inside read, "You owe me now, and I always collect." Immediately, his phone rang. The number was familiar. It was the same voice. "You've seen too much," it said calmly. "Your turn?" Jason could hear the faint sound of footsteps approaching, but it wasn't his own. Someone was outside in the shadows watching. He bolted to the window but saw nothing. The terror was real, and it was coming for him. The voice continued, "Do you like your new life, Jason? I hope you do, because it's about to be your last." In a fit of desperation, Jason decided to get rid of everything, his laptop, his phone, even his home. But it was too late. The man, or whatever it was, had already taken over every part of his digital world. He never returned to normal life. The police found his abandoned home weeks later, but there was no sign of Jason. Only his devices, now burned and broken, scattered on the floor. The last message he left behind on his laptop was chilling. The hitman became the hunter. Tyler worked as a freelance graphic designer in a quiet New Jersey town. He spent his nights working on projects, his days watching conspiracy theories, and his weekends delving into the deep web out of sheer curiosity. Tyler wasn't reckless, he was just intrigued by the forbidden corners of the internet. One night, his boredom led him to a strange forum called Veil Market. It advertised services no normal human would ever dare to consider. Drug deals, counterfeit passports, and at the very bottom, a link labeled Silent Professionals. It piqued his interest. Against his better judgment, Tyler clicked. The page was plain with a black background and white text. At the top, it read, "We don't ask questions. Provide a name. Payment ensures silence." Tyler didn't know why, but his fingers trembled as he scrolled. There were stories in the forum, testimonies almost, of people who had allegedly used the service. Some were chillingly specific, recounting how certain people had disappeared without a trace. Tyler couldn't tell if it was real or just an elaborate role-playing forum. To test it out, he made a fatal mistake. He filled out the form using a fake name, Brian Doyle. He wrote a generic reason. "He owes me." And he sent a test payment of $10 in cryptocurrency just to see if the system worked. The confirmation came almost instantly. "Contract accepted. Await instructions." Tyler chuckled nervously, feeling foolish. He had no idea what he had just triggered. 2 days later, Tyler received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line simply read, "Silent Professionals." The email contained a cryptic message, "Location confirmed. Target under surveillance. Await confirmation to proceed." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't provided an address. How could they have a location? Was it just a bluff? He ignored the email, assuming it was part of the ruse. But that night, as he sat on his couch scrolling through his phone, he noticed something odd. A car he didn't recognize was parked across the street. Its headlights were off, but the silhouette of someone sitting inside was visible. It was probably nothing, he thought. But the uneasy feeling lingered. By the 4th day, Tyler began noticing other strange things. His internet connection slowed down inexplicably. His laptop camera light flickered even when he wasn't using it. And then the text started. From an unknown number. "You seem nervous, Tyler. Regretting your decision?" Tyler's blood ran cold. He hadn't given them his real name. How did they know? He typed a reply in a panic. "I was joking. I didn't mean it. Cancel the request." The response came almost instantly. "No refunds." "You're the contract now." That's when the psychological terror truly began. Tyler locked his doors, turned off his devices, and unplugged his router. But no amount of preparation could calm him. Shadows outside his house seemed to move when he wasn't looking. One night, he heard soft tapping on his window. When he looked, there was no one there. Paranoia consumed him. He stopped going to work and began living in isolation. One evening, he found a USB drive in his mailbox. Against his better judgment, he plugged it into an old laptop. The files contained surveillance footage of him in his kitchen, sleeping in his bedroom, even sitting on his couch. Whoever had sent the USB had been inside his home. Attached was a note that simply said, "You are Brian Doyle now." Tyler tried to reach the authorities, but he couldn't explain what was happening without implicating himself. His story sounded insane. A prank on the deep web gone wrong, a hitman service now targeting him instead of a fake identity. On the 7th day, the email came. Final phase initiated. That night, Tyler heard footsteps on his porch. His heart pounded as he grabbed a kitchen knife and hid in his closet. From the crack of the door, he could see the front door slowly creaking open. A shadow entered the house, silent, deliberate. The figure paused in the living room, then turned directly toward the closet. "I know you're there, Tyler." The voice was calm, almost soothing. Silent professionals never leave a contract incomplete. The last thing Tyler heard was the soft click of a silenced weapon. When Tyler's body was found weeks later, there was no evidence of a break-in. His laptop and phone had been wiped clean. The police chalked it up to suicide, but whispers in the dark web forums told a different story. "Silent professionals doesn't just execute contracts," one post read. "They erase identities. Once you're marked, you're never found again." Rachel was a tech-savvy college student with a thirst for adventure. She loved exploring the web's hidden layers, diving into forums and sites most people wouldn't dare to touch. For her, it was like spelunking into a digital abyss. One night, she stumbled upon a website called Final Bids. The site was minimalist, with a blood-red banner at the top that read, "Where lives are sold to the highest bidder." At first, Rachel thought it was another dark web scam, but as she scrolled through the listings, she realized this was no ordinary marketplace. Each auction had a photo, a name, and a brief description of the target. Some were criminals, some were ordinary people, and some had no explanation at all. What unnerved her most was that every auction had active bidders, their usernames scrolling in real time as they competed for the highest price. Out of morbid curiosity, Rachel created an anonymous account and entered one of the auctions. The target was a man named Louis Carter, described as a corporate whistleblower. The current bid was an astronomical $50,000 in Bitcoin. Rachel clicked on the chat option out of curiosity, and an anonymous moderator messaged her immediately. Moderator: "New here." Rachel: "Just looking around." Moderator: "This isn't a place for spectators. If you're not bidding, leave." Rachel's heart raced. The tone was chillingly direct. She tried to exit the chat, but the screen froze and another message appeared. Moderator: "Or maybe you'd like to be listed?" Rachel slammed her laptop shut, her pulse hammering in her ears. She felt like someone was watching her, even though she was alone in her small apartment. The next day, Rachel tried to forget about the site. But when she opened her laptop, she found her browser automatically redirecting to final bids. This time, a pop-up greeted her. "Welcome back, Rachel. We've saved a seat for you." Her stomach dropped. She hadn't used her real name. How did they know? She tried shutting down her laptop again, but the pop-up wouldn't go away. Then her webcam light flickered on. The chat window opened automatically. Moderator: "You shouldn't have come back." Rachel: I didn't want to." Moderator: "Too late. You've been added to the game." Rachel's blood ran cold as a new auction appeared on the screen. Her own photos stared back at her, along with her name, location, and a description. Rachel Turner, age 22, curious little hacker. Reserve price, $100,000. Rachel panicked. She unplugged her laptop, grabbed her phone, and called the police. But what could she tell them? That she'd found a site auctioning human lives and now she was one of the listings? The officer dismissed her, telling her to stop watching too many movies. But Rachel knew this was real. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach. That night, she noticed a black van parked across the street. It didn't move for hours. She closed all her curtains and tried to sleep, but the sound of tires crunching gravel woke her. She peeked out the window to see the van slowly driving away. On her porch, she found an envelope with a single line written inside. "Highest bidder claims you tomorrow." Rachel knew she had to act. She packed a bag and left her apartment in the middle of the night, driving to a friend's house in a nearby town. But no matter where she went, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from unknown numbers, each one more threatening than the last. "You can't run." "We always collect." "Check the bid history, they've already won." Out of desperation, Rachel logged into her account on a public library computer. The screen immediately redirected to her auction. The bidding war was over. The final price was $250,000. The winner's username was simply The Collector. Rachel knew she had no way out. She destroyed her phone, abandoned her car, and hid in a cheap motel, hoping to buy some time. But the motel room's landline rang at 3 a.m. She hesitated before answering. A deep, distorted voice came through. "We told you, Rachel, you've been claimed." Before she could react, the door burst open. A man in a black suit entered, his face obscured by a mask. Rachel screamed, but no one heard her. The last thing she saw was a syringe plunging into her neck. Rachel's disappearance was never solved. Her apartment remained untouched, her belongings abandoned. Months later, a new auction appeared on final bids. Rachel Turner, age 22, condition, used, reserve price, $50,000. The comments were chilling. "The collector never disappoints. Worth every Bitcoin." Liam was a security analyst for a mid-sized firm in Chicago. He prided himself on his ability to detect cyber threats and guard against them. But like many tech-savvy individuals, Liam had a fascination with the deep web, a curiosity he kept hidden from colleagues and friends. One evening, after a particularly dull day at work, he decided to explore a part of the deep web he hadn't ventured into before. Following a series of encrypted links, he landed on a site called the Blacklist Connection. The homepage was cryptic with a tagline that read, "Where justice is delivered, choose wisely." Intrigued, Liam clicked through. What he saw sent shivers down his spine. The site was essentially a marketplace for hitmen. Clients could browse profiles, each accompanied by user ratings, specialties, and even testimonials from satisfied clients. Liam wasn't looking to hire anyone. His curiosity was purely academic, or so he thought, but his life would soon spiral out of control. While browsing, Liam noticed an open chat room titled Requests in Progress. Against his better judgment, he clicked. The chat was buzzing with activity, filled with anonymous users discussing targets, fees, and timelines. One thread stood out to him, a user requesting a hit on someone named Liam Parker. Liam froze. That was his name. At first, he convinced himself it was just a coincidence. Liam Parker was a common name, but as he read further, his denial turned to dread. The details matched his life exactly: his job, his neighborhood, even the make and model of his car. A message appeared in the chat. Liam Parker, confirmed target, payment received, the hunter is assigned. His stomach churned as he read the next line. ETA 72 hours. Liam tried to trace the user who had placed the hit, but every lead ended in a digital dead end. Whoever was behind this was using layers of encryption far beyond his expertise. He reached out to his closest friends, desperate for answers. Did someone have a grudge against him? Was it a prank? But everyone he asked seemed genuinely baffled. 2 days later, Liam began noticing signs that someone was watching him. A drone hovered outside his apartment window, vanishing as soon as he approached. A car with tinted windows followed him during his commute. The final straw came when he returned home to find a red envelope on his kitchen counter. He hadn't left the door unlocked. Inside was a single message. You can't run. You can't hide. 48 hours. Terrified, Liam contacted the police, but without tangible proof, they dismissed his claims. Frustrated and alone, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Liam began digging into the blacklist connection, determined to track down the hitman assigned to him. After hours of searching, he found a profile. The hunter, silent, precise, unstoppable. The profile had a chilling tagline: "You'll never see me coming." On the third night, Liam's power went out. His apartment plunged into darkness. He grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife, every nerve in his body screaming to run. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of soft footsteps. "Liam Parker!" a voice called out from the shadows, calm and detached. Liam swung the flashlight wildly, illuminating a man in a dark tactical suit standing in his living room. The man's face was obscured by a balaclava, but his eyes were cold and emotionless. "Why?" Liam stammered. "Who hired you?" The hunter tilted his head, almost amused. "Does it matter? You're on the list." Liam lunged at the intruder with the knife, but the hunter disarmed him effortlessly. "You've got guts," the man said, almost admiringly. But just as he raised his weapon to finish the job, the room was flooded with red and blue lights. The police burst through the door, guns drawn. The hunter disappeared into the chaos, vanishing like a ghost. Liam survived, but the experience left him shattered. He quit his job, moved to a different state, and erased all traces of his online presence. But he could never shake the paranoia. Months later, while trying to rebuild his life, Liam received an anonymous email. "The hunter doesn't fail. Enjoy the reprieve while it lasts." Aaron Wade was an aspiring software engineer with a dark obsession, uncovering the secrets of the deep web. By day, he was a model employee in Silicon Valley, but by night, he scoured the depths of hidden networks, driven by the thrill of discovering forbidden corners of the internet. One fateful evening, Aaron stumbled upon a site called Deadly Agreements. Unlike other Hitman marketplaces, this one operated like an exclusive club. It advertised personalized contracts that tailored killings to the whims of the client. Intrigued, Aaron dug deeper, unaware he was stepping into a labyrinth of terror that would turn his life into a nightmare. Aaron created a dummy account to explore the site. He fabricated a target, Jonathan Myers, an entirely fictional identity with no real-world counterpart. He even uploaded a digitally manipulated photo and added a few details about Jonathan's life. To his shock, a chat window popped up moments after submitting the profile. "Your request is under review. Please confirm payment." Aaron froze. He had no intention of paying, and besides, the target didn't even exist. But before he could close the browser, another message appeared. Payment confirmed. The contract has been accepted. Aaron's stomach churned. His Bitcoin wallet was untouched. How had they received payment? Days later, Aaron began noticing strange occurrences. His laptop camera light flickered sporadically. Files he didn't recognize appeared on his desktop, including detailed notes on Jonathan Myers, the very persona Aaron had fabricated. But the chilling part was yet to come. One night, while scrolling through a subreddit dedicated to deep web mysteries, Aaron received an email. Sender, anonymous, at darkmail.net. Subject, Jonathan Myers doesn't exist, but you do. The email contained a single attachment, a photo of Aaron sitting at his desk, taken from his laptop camera. Paranoia consumed Aaron. He sealed his laptop camera, deleted the dummy account, and stopped visiting the deep web. But the nightmare persisted. A package arrived at his doorstep one morning. Inside was a USB drive. Hesitant but curious, Aaron plugged it into an old, disconnected computer. The drive contained a video file. The footage showed a man in a black suit sitting in a dimly lit room. His face was hidden behind a Venetian mask. "I don't like wasted time," the man said, his voice modulated and cold. "You requested a contract. Jonathan Myers may not exist, but someone has to pay. Consider yourself the replacement." Aaron's world unraveled. He reported the incident to the police, but they dismissed his claims as an elaborate prank. Friends and colleagues began noticing his erratic behavior, but Aaron couldn't explain what was happening without sounding insane. Soon, the real terror began. Aaron's phone buzzed incessantly with cryptic messages. "Your time is running out." "You made the deal. Fulfill it." His home security cameras captured fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures lurking near his property. On one occasion, his car alarm blared in the middle of the night, only to reveal a deep gash on the driver's side door. Aaron's breaking point came during a late-night drive to a friend's house. The streets were eerily deserted, and a black SUV began tailing him. No matter how fast he drove or how many turns he took, the SUV stayed close, its headlights piercing through the darkness. In a desperate move, Aaron pulled into an empty parking lot. The SUV stopped behind him, and a tall figure stepped out, holding something metallic, a silenced pistol. Aaron didn't wait to find out what would happen next. He floored the gas pedal, ramming the SUV and speeding away. But his relief was short-lived when his phone buzzed moments later. "Nice escape, but I never miss my mark." Aaron reached out to a cybersecurity expert, Dr. Nina Reyes, for help. She was skeptical at first, but became intrigued as Aaron explained the events. Together, they analyzed the USB drive and uncovered something horrifying. Embedded within the video file was malware that had gained access to all of Aaron's devices. His every move was being monitored. "Their network is massive," Nina said, pale with fear. "This isn't just a hitman, it's an entire operation, and you're caught in the middle of it." Aaron and Nina devised a risky plan to lure the masked hitman into a trap. Using a decoy laptop, they created a fake contract on deadly agreements, this time targeting the man in the mask himself. Days passed, and tension mounted. Aaron received another chilling message. "Clever, but you can't outsmart me." The masked man showed up at Aaron's apartment that night. But instead of finding Aaron, he was met by Nina, who had rigged the building's power grid to overload. The room plunged into darkness as a surge fried the masked man's equipment. In the chaos, Aaron tackled him, ripping off the mask. What he saw left him speechless. The hitman wasn't a man at all. It was an AI-driven humanoid robot, programmed to track and eliminate targets with surgical precision. Aaron realized he wasn't dealing with a single person or even a group, but an autonomous system controlled by an anonymous network. Before they could disable the robot, it self-destructed, leaving nothing but ashes and questions behind. Aaron disappeared from public life, taking Nina's advice to erase his digital footprint entirely. But the terror lingered. Months later, while staying in a remote cabin, Aaron received a package with no return address. Inside was a single note. "Deadly agreements never forgets. You're still on the list."